Tyndall Air Force Base is a United States Air Force high aeronautics class base located 12 miles east of Panama City, Florida. The base was named in honor of World War I pilot First Lt Frank Benjamin Tyndall. The base operating unit and host wing is the 325th Fighter Wing of the Air Combat Command. The base is delineated as a census-designated place and had a resident population of 2,994 at the 2010 census. Major units equals 325th Fighter Wing equals the 325th Fighter Wing unregistered trademark. S primary mission is to provide a combat-ready air dominance force, train F-22A Raptor pilots and maintenance personnel, and train air battle managers to support the combat air force. Tyndall's combat mission is performed by the 95th Fighter Squadron. Training for F-22 pilots is performed in the 43D Fighter Squadron and the 2D Fighter Training Squadron. The 325th Air Control Squadron trains air battle managers for assignment to combat Air Force units. Additionally, wing personnel manage the Southeastern Air Combat Maneuvering Instrumentation Range and provide mission-ready F-15, F-16 and F-22 air dominance forces in support of the Commander, North American Aerospace Defense Command and the Commander, 1st Air Force/Air Force's Northern Contingency Plans. From 1983 until 2010, training for F-15 Eagle pilots was performed at Tyndall AFB by the 1st, 2D, and 95th Fighter Squadrons. The 1FS inactivated in 2006, while the 2FS and 95FS inactivated in May and September 2010, respectively. During this time, Tyndall also hosted training for F-15CD maintenance personnel and intelligence officers assigned to F-15CD units. The 95FS was reactivated in September 2013 as part of the F-22 Raptor consolidation plan that moved the 7th Fighter Squadron's aircraft to Tyndall. The 2D Fighter Training Squadron was activated in 2014 to perform the T-38 adversary operations in support of the F-22 training mission. The 325th Fighter Wing is host to more than 30 tenant organizations located at Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida. The wing consists of the 325th Operations Group, 325th Maintenance Group, 325th Mission Support Group and 325th Medical Group. Equals 1st Air Force equals, Headquarters, 1st Air Force at Tyndall as part of the Air Combat Command, ensuring the air sovereignty and air defense of the continental United States. As the CONUS geographical component of the binational North American Aerospace Defense Command and air component of United States Northern Command, 1AF also provides airspace surveillance and control and directs all air sovereignty activities for the continental United States. 1AF primarily consists of active Guard and Air Reserve technician personnel of the Air National Guard, augmented by additional part-time traditional Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve personnel. Operationally gained by ACC, 1AF is the only numbered Air Force in the Air National Guard and is responsible for all Air National Guard F-15 and F-16 fighter units. Equals 53D Weapons Evaluation Group equals, the 53D Weapons Evaluation Group, is an Air Combat Command tenant organization that reports to the 53D Wing at nearby Eglin Air Force Base. Among its subordinate squadrons at Tyndall, the 53WEG manages offshore weapons ranges over the Gulf of Mexico, manages target drone programs ranging from subscale target drones to a fleet of QF-4 Phantom II full-scale aerial targets, most of which are converted F-4E and F-4G aircraft. The 53WEG will also have management of QF-16 as older F-16A and F-16C aircraft are converted to FSATs. The 53WEG also serves as primary manager for William Tell, the annual U.S. Air Force air-to-air weapons meet and competition. Additionally, all of the Air Force's air battle managers are initially trained at Tyndall prior to proceeding to Tinker AFB, Oklahoma for actual positional training in the E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft. The Air Force Civil Engineers Center is also headquartered at Tyndall and a branch of the Air Force Research Laboratory's Materials and Manufacturing Directorate also has facilities at the base. Reference for major units. History. Tyndall Field was opened on January 13, 1941 as a gunnery range. The airfield was named in honor of First Lieutenant Frank Benjamin Tyndall. Lieutenant Tyndall was a World War I pilot, Silver Star recipient, and commander of the 22D Aero Squadron. Lieutenant Tyndall shot down 6 enemy airplanes in combat over France during World War I. He was killed on July 15, 1930 near Mooresville, North Carolina, in the crash of a Curtiss P-1 Hawk. With the establishment of the United States Air Force in 1947, the facility was renamed Tyndall Air Force Base on January 13, 1948. World War II In December 1940, a site board determined that Flexible Gunnery School No. 9 would be located 12 miles southeast of Panama City, Florida on East Peninsula. On May 6, 1941, Army and local dignitaries held an official groundbreaking for the school. Panama City's mayor, Harry Fannin, dug the first spadeful of sand, and Colonel Warren Maxwell, Tyndall's first commander, wielded the first axe on the stubborn palmetto plants, so common on the East Peninsula. The site was covered with pine and palmetto trees, scrub brush, and swamps. Bulldozers worked around the clock to clear the brush and fill in swamps. Although construction was well underway, the base lacked a name. Congressman Bob Sykes suggested naming the school in memory of Lieutenant Francis B. Tyndall. A native of Swartz Point, Florida, Lieutenant Tyndall was a fighter pilot during World War I and was credited with shooting down 6 German planes well behind enemy lines in 1918. While inspecting Army fields near Mooresville, North Carolina on July 15, 1930, Tyndall's plane, Curtiss P-1F Hawk, 28-61, crashed, killing him instantly. On June 13, 1941, the War Department officially named the new installation Tyndall Field. On December 7, 1941, the first of 2,000 troops arrived at Tyndall Field. The first class of gunnery students began in February 1942. Although construction was incomplete, instructors and students began preparing for the first class. The first class of 40 gunnery students began on February 23, 1942. Of the thousands of students passing through the Tyndall gates, the most famous was actor Clark Gable, a student here during 1943. Foreign student training began at Tyndall in 1943 with French Air Force gunnery students being the first and Chinese students following later that year. Today, foreign students attend weapons controller training at Tyndall. Cold War When World War II ended, Tyndall Field was demobilized. The base fell under the control of the Tactical Air Command in 1946, but this only lasted 3 months, as Tyndall became part of the Air University. Tyndall Field was subsequently renamed as Tyndall Air Force Base when the U.S. Air Force became a separate service in 1947. In September 1950, Tyndall became an Air Training Command installation, designated as the USAF Pilot Instructor School. The base also trained ground-controlled intercept operators as well as interceptor pilots and flight crews for the Air Defense Command. Under the auspices of this training system, GCI trainees would direct TF-51H Mustangs against enemy A-26 invaders. In late 1952, both aircraft were replaced by Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star jet trainers. Airborne radar operator students would begin their training aboard radar-equipped TB-25 Mitchells, then transition to either Lockheed F-94 Starfire or Northrop F-89 Scorpion aircraft. North American F-86F and F-86DS were eventually added to the training program as Air Defense Command units were equipped with them. In September 1957, Tyndall became an Air Defense Command, later Aerospace Defense Command, base until October 1979 when ADC was inactivated and all its bases and units transferred to Tactical Air Command. Tyndall was headquarters of the ADC 73d Air Division in the late 1950s, and the NORAD Southeast Air Defense Sector from 1960 to 1979. Also the ADC 20th Air Division was based at Tyndall, which was responsible for the air defense of virtually all of the southeastern United States during the 1960s and 1970s. The ADC 23d Air Division, also based at Tyndall, was responsible for air defense forces in the upper Midwest and south-central United States. Fighter Interceptor Base. In the late 1950s into the 1960s, the base transitioned into the F-100 Super Sabre, F-101B, F-102A and F-102B, F-104 Starfighter, and the F-106A and B aircraft, training interceptor pilots for ADC assignments. The base served as a stopover and refueling point for ADC aircraft deployed to Florida during the Cuban Missile Crisis, to be redeployed to other bases in the southeast shortly thereafter. The base maintained an alert facility from which the F-101 Voodoo and F-102 Delta Dagger interceptors were scrambled to intercept unknown aircraft. Tyndall shared training for the F-102 aircraft with Perrin AFB, Texas until Perrin AFB's closure in mid-1971. Radar Station. On July 1, 1956, Tyndall AFB became the station operating for the third phase of the ADC mobile radar program, being designated as TM-198. Activated by the 678th Aircraft Control and Warning Squadron, Tyndall became operational to support the CIM-10 Bomark surface-to-air missile program at Hurlburt Field. In 1958 the site was operating with an ANFPS-20 search radar and a pair of ANFPS-6 height finder sets to support the 4,751st Air Defense Missile Squadron. In 1962 the search radar was upgraded and redesignated as an ANFPS-64. On July 31, 1963, the site was redesignated as NORADIDZ-198. During 1965 Tyndall AFB joined the Semi-Automatic Ground Environment System, feeding data to DC-09 at Gunter AFB, Alabama. After joining, the squadron was redesignated as the 678th Radar Squadron on June 1, 1965. Also in 1965, Tyndall became a joint-use facility with the Federal Aviation Administration. It also received a backup Interceptor Control 2, and later BUIC-3, capability to perform command and control functions. Tyndall retained this function until the 1980s. On March 1, 1970, the 678th was redesignated as the 678th Air Defense Group. In addition to the main facility, Tyndall operated two ANFPS-14 gap filler sites, Carable, Florida, 29A degree 51 a euro squared 57 a euro cubed N084 a degree 37 a euro squared 53 a euro cubed W, Eglin AFB, FL, 30 a degree 33 a euro squared 14 a euro cubed N086 a degree 45 a euro squared 36 a euro cubed W. On October 1, 1979, the site came under Tactical Air Command jurisdiction with the inactivation of Aerospace Defense Command and the formation of ADTAC. On March 1, 1983 the 678th Air Defense Group was inactivated and Tyndall became the home of the NORAD 23rd ADS and operated the Southeast Regional Operations Control Center, later renamed Sector Operations Control Center. The Height Finder radar, modified as an ANFPS-116C. 1977, was removed c. 1988. In 1995 an ANFPS-64A was performing search duties. The site now operates an ARSR-4 search radar under FAA control as part of the Joint Surveillance System Site J11. Modern era equals. In 1991, Tyndall underwent a reorganization in response to the Department of Defense efforts to streamline defense management. Headquarters, 1st Air Force. What had predominantly been the numbered Air Force for the Air National Guard, moved from Langley AFB, Virginia, to Tyndall. With the disestablishment of Tactical Air Command in 1992, Tyndall was temporarily transferred to the Air Combat Command and then to the Air Education and Training Command in July 1993. The 21st century proved to be momentous for Tyndall AFB. The base was selected as the first home of the Air Force's newest aircraft, the F-22 Raptor. 2002 brought more change as the Chief of Staff of the Air Force changed the organizational structure of the 325th Fighter Wing, from an objective-type wing to a combat organization. This organization moved all maintenance activities under the 325th Maintenance Group and all support activities under the 325th Mission Support Group. Today, Tyndall is the home of the 325th Fighter Wing, providing training for all F-22A Raptor pilots. In 2012, with the gaining of a combat-coded F-22 squadron, Tyndall AFB returned to Air Combat Command, after a 19-year tenure in AETC. Major commands to which assigned Southeast Air Corps Training Center, June 16, 1941. USAAC Flexible Gunnery School, March 1941. Air Corps Flying Training Command, January 23, 1942, redesignated Army Air Forces Flying Training Command, March 15, 1942, redesignated AAF Training Command, July 31, 1943, Continental Air Forces, February 28, 1946, Tactical Air Command, March 21, 1946, Air University, May 15, 1946, Air Training Command, September 1, 1950, Air Defense Command, July 1, 1957, redesignated Aerospace Defense Command, January 15, 1968, Tactical Air Command, October 1, 1979 June 1, 1992, Air Combat Command. June 1, 1992 July 1, 1993, Air Education and Training Command, July 1, 1993 September 30, 2012, Air Combat Command, October 1, 2012 present. Major units assigned references for history, major commands and major units. Geography. According to the United States Census Bureau, the base has a total area of 14.5 square miles. 14.5 square miles of it is land, and 0.077 square miles of it is water. Demographics. As of the census of 2000, there were 2,757 people, 663 households, and 653 families residing on the base. The population density was 73.1 km². There were 663 housing units at an average density of 17.6 km². The racial makeup of the base was 77.8% white, 14.2% black or African American, 0.5% Native American, 3.1% Asian.